time for our album review. What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Justin, and today we are doing our album review, or rather my album review of Nursery Crime by Genesis, their third studio album, and their first album with their classic lineup. You know, it's kind of nice to be standing up and talking. I don't really get to do this too often. Usually there's a desk in front of me. I got a little more breathing room. I can kind of like come in a little bit. I can kind of go out a little bit. I gotta say that for me, as I was going through listening to the album, listening to every song on it, it was quite a journey. And just like a storybook and just like a nursery tale or a nursery rhyme, each one of these songs carries some sort of story, whether that is something crazy going on with the musical box or to these interesting mythological couplings, as we'll say. The music and the passion that these musicians showed in the early 20s. These guys were in their early 20s when they made this album. And for this to be the result of their efforts and of their passion in the music is really surprising, and it really shows what kind of band Genesis would be as they move forward. The addition of Phil Collins on the drums, Steve Hackett on the guitar is a fantastic one, adding a really nice groove throughout the whole album that, looking back on albums like Trespass, I found was kind of missing. Hackett, this is Hackett's album. If I can say anything, this is Hackett's album. From the very beginning, in Musical Box, to moments such as Hogweed, even the softer songs for Absent Friends, Hackett shows his subtleties in his guitar playing, but still his absolutely riff-driven technicality as well. The album was produced by John Anthony, who had worked with bands such as Vandegraaff Generator and Rare Bird, not Rear Bird, that's a different type of bird, but Rare Bird, like you can't find them, and had worked on their previous album Trespass. So he has experience with this kind of rock, kind of pastoral sound that they had on Trespass, but just evolved just a little bit further here in Nursery Crime. The album opens up with the fan favorite Musical Box, with Gabriel's soothing and haunting vocals opening it up, angrily and passionately yelling his head off as the song goes on, as the plot moves forward in that song. I love the way that the song eventually gets into this big explosion and the gallop of the drums. It's literally like a musical stampede, the way that it goes, especially with the guitar and how driven it is, the drumming. Once again, like I said, this is Collins and Hackett coming out of the gate, their first time in the band, and they do an amazing job. And like a storybook, that song kind of opens and sets the tone for the rest of the album and for the rest of these little stories and these little vignettes to play out. And of course, that song eventually builds and builds and builds into what I would consider is one of the more memorable solos from Hackett, but also from Genesis as a whole. And after that, it gets into a little bit of relief. It gets into a little bit of an exhale with For Absent Friends, which is actually one of my more liked songs on the album. And while it is a little bit more of a plain song, and there's not a lot of uniqueness necessarily in it, it is a really nice, emotionally driven acoustic piece. It's a brief stroll down memory lane just with a few less friends. But this song, which is by Hackett and Collins, was a really nice debut for them to kind of show their writing, their songwriting skills, and their acoustic side, their softer side. And listening to Phil's vocals here, even though it's more reserved, you get a glimpse of what Phil would become in the future. But for me personally, I really do just find the lyrics and the way that it's written very well done. I enjoy the story, this story of love and loss, of companionship and loneliness. Having people around you and at some point one day losing them. And that's something that we all face, we will face if we haven't already. And I find that message very, very hard-hitting and heart-hitting as well. But then, as soon as that's over, we have the return of the giant hogweed, which features probably one of my favorite openings. I love Hackett and Banks. The way that they open, it's just a fun song with nice aggressive vocals by Peter Gabriel as well. A really nice piano moment from Banks about halfway through the song, and then another solo with Hackett. And how do you pronounce this? Heracleum mantagazanium? I don't know. It's a nice exaggeration of an actual plant that is toxic, and I like how they take that idea, that simple idea of the plant, and expand that into this bigger story of these plants that are trying to take over. It's pretty much like The Happening, just with a little less Mark Wahlberg, a little more Genesis. But I also feel like songs like that, as well as Harold the Barrel, would also begin to showcase their more dark and humorous side. And I think that that's something that Genesis has done pretty right from what I've heard, especially on here because it's backed up by such great musicianship. If it wasn't, it would just come across as a silly story. I mean, let's be honest. But because the riffing is great, the piano sounds amazing, and Peter sounds really good singing on that track, it actually works. So let that be known that no matter how silly an idea may seem in writing, if you put the right mechanics into it, if the right kind of music is backing it up, it'll come out fantastic. And then we get to one of my absolute favorite songs on the album, Seven Stones. Guys, do you like Mellotron? Do you like great melodies? 'Cause I do. I heard an old man tell his tale. That was like a Frank Sinatra version. Seven Stones is one of my favorite Genesis songs, period. I listen to that song all the time. I love it. It's been on my playlist. I don't know how many times I've listened to it. Peter, fantastic vocals. This is Banks' song through and through to me. Just his melody is really, really good. The chorus is kind of catchy. I mean, I like it. Group harmonies as they cascade over the chorus of the song and at the outro of the song as well, bringing this nice full sound to the song. It's just this nice glimmering sea of beauty that I just really enjoy that song. And do yourself a favor, listen to the drumming in that song. That's why I really enjoy Phil Collins. It may not seem like the most technical thing, but listen to all the details that he puts in there. And I'm pointing out Collins on this track, but that goes really for the whole band on this album. You can hear the main melodies, you can hear the song and the music, but listen for the details and everything. Listen to how Banks accents these beautiful rhythms that they come up with, these beautiful songs, with just a little bit of keyboard work. Sometimes he plays a little more reserved, but it's always so tastefully done. Same with Hackett, and Peter's exaggeration with some of his singing is really enjoyable. Going back to Hogweed, going forward into the like I said, the darkly humorous Harold the Barrel. And the ending to Seven Stones, that climax is just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Like I said, do you like Mellotron? There you go. That's what you want. Harold the Barrel, Harold the Barrel, Harold the Barrel. One of the most fun songs, if not the most fun song on the album. And same thing applies to Harold the Barrel, as I mentioned with Hogweed. If it was in less capable hands, if it was bad music that was backing up the story, it wouldn't be done so well. But we have a story here from Genesis that is, sure, kind of funny, but at the same time, it's also kind of sad. Genesis does a pretty good job of handling both of those in a balance that makes it come out tastefully done, still has some sort of heart and message behind it, but it can still make you giggle a little bit. Like a good movie can do, right? Do you guys remember Click, Adam Sandler? I'm just picking that movie because I just thought about it. But the movie's hilarious. But the ending, the last third of that movie, you know what I'm talking about. So in the same way, Genesis does a great way of handling the serious and the comedic and bringing them together in a nice story. It's how to do a dark comedy the right way. And in this song, Collins and Gabriel sound really good together, which, once again, would be a forbearance and would be some sort of foreshadowing as to their work together later on as they would sing together more and more. And I really enjoy the really nice and playful bounce of the song, the groove, which is just, it just kind of bumbles along. The nice vocals from Gabriel especially, and the nice fade out at the end as Harold falls to his presumed death. But just the way that it's done. And then the music is kind of serious at that point. It really reminds me of watching a stage play and watching the characters play out these roles. And everyone in Genesis has a very particular role. They all play those roles to perfection. After Harold, we get to the next track on the album, Harlequin. And then we get to my favorite track, which is Fountain of...
Hey, wait a second. You need to go back to Harlequin. We want to hear what you have to say about it.
Like, do you really?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think that Harlequin is necessarily a bad song on the album. I just think that it's the least impressive song on the album. It's the only one that doesn't really do anything for me or make me want to listen to it again. And even though it's short, it's a nice rest after songs like Seven Stones and Harold the Barrel. It's just, I don't know. I feel like For Absent Friends was that nice acoustic piece, but it had me emotionally invested. This one, I mean, Rutherford sounds great on the guitar. He always has, of course. And I feel like he does get underrepresented for that. But I don't feel like there's necessarily anything standing out in the song. It's just a quaint little rest. It's just a quaint little rest in the album. You know what it reminds me of, actually? It reminds me of like when you go to a restaurant or even when you go to a dinner with friends and family and you have a nice big entree, right? Like you've eaten your main meal and you're good. There's that little break between that and you're talking, you're having a good time, and then you get served dessert and coffee after that. Harlequin is like that little break. It's not necessarily affecting that you ate your entree and that you're going to get dessert. It's just, it's okay. It's okay. But then we get to my favorite song on the album. My absolute top favorite, best song, no doubt about it, song on the album. The Fountain of Salmacis, Marcis, or Makis. I've heard every sort of pronunciation. And I'm not sure which one's right. I'm just going to call it Fountain. This song to me is exactly what Genesis represents. Their most musically interesting song on the album, their most progressive song on the album, while still maintaining that story element, talking about the myth of Hermaphroditus. Still very catchy to me. Great writing, perfect structure. It's just the perfect song to me. That song is my favorite on the album, and to me the best one on the album. From that beautiful opening, I love the way that it just rises, and I always mention this, it's like breath. It rises, it falls. It rises, it falls. I love it. And then the amazing groove that it gets into. I love it. Listen, everything about Fountain is perfect. The subtle and sublime drumming by Collins. Forward momentum. Banks and Hackett carrying inertia from it. Nice strong bass line. Bum, 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 bum. With Collins, they sound great together. Once again, we get dual vocals from Collins and Gabriel as the song progresses, just like the story progresses and the coupling, as we'll call it, in the plot. As that story begins to intensify, so does the music. And then we get to my favorite moment in the song, which is when all the music stops and we're left with what I thought was guitar, but every live video I've seen is Banks on the keyboard doing the solo part, which leads into the next instrumental break. It's just good. That song actually represents to me what Genesis would also become moving forward. Because now that we have the core group, Hackett and Collins are in the group now, and we have what we would say is the classic lineup. Now they've all merged, now they've all united, and they are absolutely harmonizing in the way that they play with each other. And the album ends with this beautiful solo and these harmonizing vocals that come together. And to be honest, every single time so far that I've listened to this song, I've gotten goosebumps. It's just that good. The album is really good. While I don't enjoy Harlequin, the rest of the album's pretty good. Now to the parts that you guys have been waiting for. Now to the categories that you guys have been waiting for. My favorite moment in the album is, like I said, that keyboard section in Fountain of Salmacis. That's good, that's good. And then what it leads into, I really enjoy that section so much It's just that little bit of isolation that builds the tension, builds the suspense, and then this fantastic instrumental that it leads into is perfect. My favorite lyrics on the album are actually from For Absent Friends. I had to think about this one a little bit, and I really enjoy the songwriting on that one. I really like the lyrics on that one, so I specifically chose, "Inside the archway, the priest greets them with a courteous nod. He's close to God. Looking back at days of 4 instead of 2, years seem so few, 4 instead of 2. Heads bent in prayer for friends not there." I just think those are fantastic lyrics. Like I mentioned, talking about love and loss, having people around you, and then several years later, you begin to lose those people around you. It's a nice reflective journey that's set to very nice guitar playing and fantastic singing from Collins. And in case you didn't know, my favorite song is Fountain. I think I said that a few times, but yeah, that's absolutely my favorite song on the album. Now, if we were getting into how I would rank the songs, and I definitely want to know, I really, really want to know how you guys would rank the songs. So put your list down below before I put mine right in this general area. My song list, my song ranking from top to bottom: Fountain, easily. Seven Stones, easily. Those two are on my playlist, by the way. Those two are like constant listening. After that, we get into Return of the Giant Hogweed. It's a really good song. For Absent Friends, Harold the Barrel, The Musical Box, and Harlequin. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. The Musical Box, why is it so low on your list? I think it's a good song. I just actually prefer almost every other song on the album compared to it. But think of it like this, though. There's 7 songs on the album. From position 6 up, I think are great songs. I don't think The Musical Box is a bad song, because that'd be silly of me to say. I just prefer the rest of it. So did my song rankings match up to yours, or were they completely different? Should I hate on Harlequin as much as I do? I don't hate it, I just think it's like unsalted meat. Either way, I want to thank you guys so much for watching the album review, and as well as my first listens of the songs on the album. Thank you for waiting and your patience in me getting these album reviews back out again. I wanted to change some things and stand up while I was talking this time. I'm not going to do scores, and I'm not going to do percentages, and I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to let the review speak for itself. And these are my final thoughts. I think it's a really fantastic album, and while I think that Harlequin is a weaker track, it's just a small snippet of the album, because the rest of the album is really good. And I was thoroughly surprised going through it and finding just how much I enjoy from it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking, and please share the video if you think anyone else will enjoy it. You can join me on Twitter. You can join me in the comments down below. I hope that you're having a fantastic day. Thank you so much for the donations to the channel as well. And I hope that you're having a fantastic night. I will talk to you later. Bye.